and music publishing businesses. All these businesses are dependent on acquisition of different rights of movies. Considering our presence across multiple formats and geographies, we acquire most of the rights of a movie. Our strategy of co-producing movies with renowned filmmakers allows us to build a strong movie catalog that can be monetized across the different businesses that I just mentioned. This strategy allows us to refrain from entering into bidding wars for movie rights on several fronts. Since as you all as you all must have noted, in the recent years the cost of OTT movie rights has seen a substantial inflation. While our investment in movie productions are going up, the incremental investments after adjusting for the various rights that we would have bought in any case for our other businesses is not really that large. I would also like to point out that the scale-up of movie production business will lag our guidance for financial year 2022 due to the impact of the pandemic. Considering the opportunities that lay before our two core businesses, we are prioritizing content investments in digital and television. Additionally, the prolonged uncertainty due to the pandemic has made the operating environment quite volatile. In light of these factors, we are reevaluating our investments in Sugarbox, and we will be scaling it down for the foreseeable future. We believe this investment phase of Z 4.0 will last for a period of 2 years. As we had indicated earlier, we would not be able to hold margins at 30% as we invest for future. During the investment phase, our EBITDA margin would be around 25% plus. Once this phase is over, we should move back to 30% margins. During this period, we are targeting free cash generation of approximately 50% of profit after tax. Also, you must note that the impact of these investments on our margins would have been lesser had there not been an embargo on the subscription price hikes. The loss of more than a year of subscription revenue growth is one of the most important reasons for the 5% reduction in our margins as we make investments. Many of you would remember that at the start of the last decade, when we had embarked upon our journey to invest in regional markets, we had sacrificed margins. However, as those businesses scaled up, not only did the margins return to normal levels, but we also saw multiple years of higher than industry revenue and margin growth. We believe that our investments over the next 2 years will build a solid foundation for the next phase of growth for the company. On that note, I would like to hand over the call to our CFO, Rohit Gupta, to take you all through the operations and the financial performances. Rohit, over to you.
Thank you, Puneet. Before I take you through the operating and financial highlights for the quarter, I hope all you guys are keeping safe. This second wave of COVID has taken pretty much all of us by surprise, both at a personal level as well as from business point of view. Our business had seen a sharp rebound in the third quarter, and that recovery continued in the fourth quarter as well, as things on ground became close to normal. This is also visible in our ad growth numbers, where we have seen 9% growth on Y-on-Y basis. The spike we had seen on account of festive season in Q3 normalized, but the demand from advertisers continued to be strong during the last quarter. However, the demand has softened a bit during the current quarter as lockdowns have come into effect in a staggered fashion around the country. But looking at the demand we saw during the fourth quarter, we are confident that as soon as these restrictions ease, we will see a rebound as we have seen last year. We had contingency plans in place for shooting in case lockdowns were implemented, and we were able to execute those in Hindi and Marathi markets. These channels have continued with original programming since the lockdown in Maharashtra was announced. However, such mitigation strategy might not work now in some markets, as most states have announced lockdown and there might not be feasible locations to which shoots can be shifted. However, we are trying to minimize the impact of lockdown on our programming. We are happy to spend more on content on account of change of shoot locations, maintaining bio bubble, and taking other safety precautions. During the quarter, our television network improved its all India viewership share by 70 BPS to 18.9% and continued to be India's number 2 TV entertainment network. While the performance in markets like Bengali, Kannada, Telugu, and movies was strong, in markets like Hindi general entertainment, Tamil, and Marathi, we believe there is scope for improvement, and our teams are working to fix the gaps in content that their research have identified. The new channels we had launched around 4 quarters ago have already established strong positions in their respective markets. Now coming to ZEE5, global MAUs and DAUs for the month of March were 72.6 million and 6.1 million respectively. During the quarter, ZEE5 released 14 original shows and movies. Over the last 12 months, despite the pandemic halting production for around 3 months, ZEE5 has released 75 plus original shows and movies. ZEE5 is home to biggest Indian language digital exclusive content library, and it further enhanced consumer value proposition with the new pricing of the annual pack. We expect that it will enable us to upgrade consumers to the 12-month pack instead of monthly subscriptions. The revenue and EBITDA loss of ZEE5 for the quarter was rupees 1.1 billion and rupees 1.6 billion respectively. The plans of Zee Studios continue to be impacted due to varying degree of restrictions on cinema halls during the quarter. Zee Music Company continued to be second most subscribed Indian music channel on YouTube, and the label witnessed a 50% growth in YouTube video views on a Y-on-Y basis. Now coming to the financial performance for the quarter. Like I had mentioned earlier, domestic advertising revenue grew by 9%. Domestic subscription revenue saw a like-to-like growth of 5.6% year-on-year, and the EBITDA for the quarter was rupees 5.4 billion with a margin of 27.5%. For the full year FY21, while the first half saw domestic advertising revenues decline by 46%, the second half grew by 8.2%, resulting in a full year decline of 20%. Subscription revenues grew by 6% on a comparable basis, driven primarily by the digital business. The EBITDA for the year was 17.9 billion with a margin of 23.2%. The cash and treasury investments for the company was rupees 18.8 billion as on March 31st, which includes bank balance of rupees 7.5 billion, fixed deposit of rupees 3.4 billion, mutual funds investments of rupees 7.4 billion, and NCDs worth rupees 505 million. Thank you, and over to you, Bijal.
Thank you, Rohit. We will now proceed to question and answer session.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handset while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Abneesh from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Puneet. My first question is on Sugarbox. You had said...
Sir, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but may I please request you to use the handset mode while speaking? Your audio is not audible.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Puneet. My first question is on Sugarbox. So in Q3, you had said that you will give numbers for FY22 and also you'll commence the investments in Sugarbox from Q1. Because of the pandemic, is there a change in plan or is there a more structural reason? And versus initial plans, what is the current status?
So, Abneesh, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, given the current pandemic and the uncertainties around it, we will be not investing very aggressively behind Sugarbox. In fact, from our original plan itself, it will be scaled down significantly for the foreseeable future.
But Puneet, versus Q3 to now, the pandemic wave 2 has happened, and now wave 2 is coming down also in, say, Maharashtra, Delhi. So it is something which will keep happening and it will come down. So wanted to understand, is there something, say, after 3-4 months, the wave 2 and wave 3 and vaccine, etc., issues get resolved, then what would be your take on Sugar Box? So is there any structural reason? I wanted to understand because wave 2, wave 3 vaccinations are also happening.
Yeah, hi, Abneesh. So, see, at this point of time, first of all, the project has been delayed significantly. We were expecting it to start rolling out in February of last year, and it has been delayed, and still there will be much more delay. So that is point number one. Secondly, we are still not sure that how long pandemic will last. So let's say today some time back we were not expecting phase 2, but phase 2 came in a very bad way. So that is another thing. Third and more important thing is that even after everything stabilizes, how the traffic will build up. Traffic assumptions might be very different when we were thinking about the project. So those are the things which needs a thorough re-evaluation. So if there is anything, if we were to go ahead with investment or do anything, we'll let market know at least 6 months in advance. So at this point of time, what we can say for FY22, very clearly, we do not see that kind of investment which we were talking about earlier.
Sure, that's helpful. My second question is on market share. You said you want to be number one. You want to understand what is the current gap. 18.9% is your share. Second is on channels where you improved market share, so Bengali, Telugu and Kannada. Are these more sustainable in nature or more because you have shown some movies or some one-off?
So I'll take the second part first, Avnish. Normally, when we do one-offs, I don't account for that when I talk about improvement in market share. And consistently, I've been doing that since I've been part of this company. So any channel share improvement that we talk about are always consistent improvements. In terms of the gap today, I think the clear leader is about 24%, and we are at about 19%. So that's the current gap that exists, which we have taken a target to bridge over the period of next 5 years.
Sure. One follow-up to that, in Hindi, I especially see in top 10 programs, our market share is much lower versus the historical past. And secondly, in Tamil, because of the movie channel, are we getting a bit more traction in closing the gap versus earlier?
So Hindi, certainly you're right, Abhish, and we are putting plans in place to change those, get more new programming in. Unfortunately, the second wave is not helping. The mitigation plan was only for what is on air, and therefore new shows plan is kind of taken a little bit of a hit, but hopefully soon we'll be activating that as well. The Tamil movie channel has certainly given us more traction in the market because now we have a bouquet offering in the Tamil Nadu market from a subscription point of view. Unfortunately, because of the NTO2, the pricing has not changed because the inclusion of the movie channels is currently not priced, and therefore that benefit is not yet flowing to us.
Sure. And one last quick question on B5. You have done all the right things. The MAU, DAU, minutes, everything is improving. Revenue has fallen around 8-9% quarter on quarter, if you could explain that. Second is the Radhe, I would say the new innovation that you have done. So 499 rupee entire year and Radhe free. So almost Radhe is essentially part of that. So almost Radhe is free and very aggressive pricing. So what else is needed? You have been doing all the right stuff, but we don't see any meaningful movement in revenue as we speak. So are you saying we are too early in terms of judging? And second, this kind of experiment of Radhe at 499 rupee, from a P&L perspective, it will be quite tough, right? Such a big budget movie at 499 rupees, 12 months included.
No, I think firstly Radhe has done what we had expected it to do for us. I think the price point of 499 and Radhe is not linked to one another. I think 499 was independent of that. The bundling that we did, because this was the first of experiment of pay-per-view to be launched in this country was an innovation that we did, and it was quite successful. In terms of numbers, it's been only 7 days since the movie released. It's so difficult to start talking about numbers right now. But in my view, we look at movies as a bouquet, and as a bouquet of services, this will also make money for us. And Radhe will certainly, over a period of time, contribute to the bottom line through the various rights that we own. What was your first question? Did you?
Yeah, fall quarter-on-quarter in ZEE5 revenue.
So the fall is largely on account of advertising, which is cyclical in nature, and also that there is one telco renewal that's pending since third quarter of last year.
Yeah. So that has been okay. Amish, one is that last quarter was festive also, so we had actually seen some bump up, which is not there, and a couple of telco renewals which are still in work in progress and were concluded only in 1Q.
Okay, Punit and Bijal, thanks a lot and all. Thanks.
Thank you, Abneesh.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kunal Vora from BNP Paribas. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. First one on ad revenue. Do you think you can get to FY20 level of ad revenue in FY22? And can you talk about the trends which you are seeing in March, the extent of disruption which you are seeing in content production, etc. On the ad side, what's the outlook?
So we believe that the market was tracking well to reach towards a double-digit growth for FY22 as an industry. Had it not been for the second wave, that would have certainly been achieved. If the wave doesn't continue beyond the first quarter, I still believe the prospects of the market hitting double-digit number in growth is possible. And as usual, we will endeavor to be at the top end, if not higher than the market growth in our growth trajectory.
Are you talking about double-digit over FY21? Because that's a very low base. To get to, like, say, growth over FY20 would require almost 20+% growth.
Yeah, it's actually growth over 20.
Over 20, okay. You're talking about double-digit over FY20, okay.
Yeah, FY21 we are not referring to in any of our growth numbers.
Sure. Second one on international subscription, like the number is down to almost 55 crore from 80 crore last year, and it used to be 100 crore per quarter a couple of years back. So was there some one-off, or is it because of customers moving to OTT and content piracy? And also, how is ZEE5 revenue tracking in international markets, and how is the reach now?
Rohit will take that.
So ZEE5 in international markets have just started, and the numbers are small. I would say it started well, and it's been taken up well, but the numbers are pretty small, to take it up. Kunal, can you give me your first question, please?
Yeah, on the international revenue, subscription revenue, you've seen the number come down to about 55 crore. It was 80 crore last year in same quarter, and it used to be 100 crore 2-3 years back. So just the international subscription revenue, how do we look at it? Was there some one-off, or is it because of consumers moving to OTT and because of increased content piracy? So wanted to get some sense on international subscription outlook.
Okay. Well, see, the drop in international subscription revenues is primarily on account of, some accounting. So from this quarter, we have started recognition of subscription revenues net of certain costs associated with the earning of the same. So accordingly, our costs are also lowered, and there is no impact on the EBITDA. Additionally, during the previous quarter, our international subscription revenues were slightly on a higher side, and a part of this decline on a Q-on-Q basis can be attributed to that.
Okay. So you're saying 55 crore is the number we should be looking at, or it's like a number which is adjusted downwards because of some one-off?
Yeah, like I said, there's some accounting adjustments that, has happened, and, some netting off from the gross and the net. So, on a like-to-like basis, it will remain the same, and there is no impact on the EBITDA.
Understood. And lastly, on ZEE5 losses, what you indicated seems to be that content spending will increase and pricing is going to be lower. So obviously, unless customer additions are like much higher, we are looking at higher losses for ZEE5. So like this year you had about 650-700 crore of loss. How should we look at the FY22, the ZEE5 losses?
We are looking at an overall guidance, Kunal, for the company that I've just given. We would not be looking at giving a guidance for specifically, but it will be in the same range, marginally higher than what we have spent in the last year.
Okay.
Vijay, you want to?
That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vivekanand S. from Ambit Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the opportunity. So, a couple of questions. One is on the subscription side. Puneet, you mentioned that the NTO 2.0 is hurting your ability to monetize. So, any thoughts on where this is progressing? Because there were some legal challenges with implementing this. So, if you can help us understand how we should look at the subscription revenue growth. Second question is on the redeemable preference share. Now, this is 2021 is probably the last tranche of the redeemable preference share. So, are we going to tie up any sort of cash commitment to shareholders now after this tranche ends? Any thoughts on cash return would be appreciated. Thank you.
Hi, Vivekan. So, the first part, see, the NTO 2 is a matter which is still in the courts. I think all parties have filed multiple affidavits for expediting the order because all hearings have been done. So it's very hard for me to predict when that will be solved. But we are, as an industry, working with TRAI to find an amicable solution to see that this logjam is resolved as soon as possible for the betterment of the industry. Because I believe this is now even hurting the DPO parts, not just the broadcasters. So that's where we are on that part. The second question was?
Yeah, hi, Vivekanand. So, as you rightly said that last tranche of preference share redemption will happen around end of this year, and it is bit early to talk about our plans, how we are going to go about distribution of cash. But that said, at this point of time, we are working with 30% policy. So 30% of consolidated profit is being given as dividend. And till the time there is no change, that will be the policy which will be followed. This policy is reviewed every year. So towards the say 4Q of next year, when we would not have any preference share payment commitment, that time definitely this factor will be also taken into account to decide whether we should change policy or not. But it is bit early for us to comment at this point in time.
Okay. So one small follow-up, Puneet. Thank you for the comments on the NTO. So would it be possible to help us understand how we view the subscription market now? You have to assume both scenarios, right? I mean, if the legal challenge is not successful, then you have to live with it, right? So how should one see the subscription market evolve?
So currently, until the tariff order legal issue is not resolved, there is not much we can do. So to expect any significant growth to come from that revenue stream is highly unlikely. But if this matter is resolved, and I have maintained this always, that barring maybe a quarter or 2 quarters of disruption, till the new tariff order settles down, we should be back to our low teens kind of growth number in the subscription revenue.
Okay. Thank you. All the best.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Latika Chopra from JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I have 2 questions. The first one was on your movie production. Last time you talked about, you were targeting 35 to 40 movies on an annual basis. Are these plans still intact? And if so, could you share what kind of allocation of investments would this part of business see over the next 2 years? And the second question was on programming costs. You talked about, a double-digit growth that you were expecting on the ad side versus FY20. But looking at the scenario on the ground today, are you witnessing inflation on the cost front? both on the programming side and, of course, if any thoughts on employee cost inflation as well? Thank you.
Yes. So on the content side, we do expect inflation to happen because we would want to continue to run with original content, in fact, increase original content, and therefore there will be the regular inflation that is expected in the market. We also do expect that there will be inflation to the manpower cost. Apart from just inflation, there will be additional manpower costs because we are on a recruitment drive for our digital business, and that will take some costs up because that is investing for the future again. The double-digit part on advertising revenue, the thing stems from the fact that if this lockdown scenario, doesn't spill into Q2, I am quite certain, being an optimist, that the double-digit figure for the year can be achieved over financial year 20, not over 21. And on the movie allocation side, as I said, Latika, in my opening remarks, we are buying movies for all of our other verticals in any case, whether it be television, whether it be ZEE5, whether it be the Zee Music Company, or even our distribution arm of the business. So our allocation to films is an incremental allocation to produce films. It's not as if we spend money for all those rights, plus we spend money to produce movies. So it's an incremental allocation. Details, of course, Bijal and Rohit can share with you offline. And certainly we will not be hitting the 30 to 40 films given the current pandemic situation in the current year. But certainly once that lifts, we would endeavor to that because it truly acts like a strategic feeder business for all the verticals of Zee, and thereby giving us the advantage of not getting into bidding wars with others who do not run these as independent verticals. People who run these as independent verticals. So we don't get into bidding wars with them.
Sure. Just one follow-up here on the programming cost inflation. On a like-to-like basis, if you exclude the original content or incremental content of the digital side, just on the broadcasting side, what kind of a like-to-like programming and cost inflation would you anticipate?
See, like-to-like cost inflation as far as per hour of programming is concerned, it is in line with inflation in India. There will be some improvement in production quality every year. So for television, maybe 5 to 6% kind of inflation that we see every year. So I don't think that is changing materially.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Yogesh Kirve from B&K Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. So regarding the investment phase, we talked about the impact on the margin, but could you also talk about in terms of the working capital or inventory or generally the cash flow conversion that would pan out over the next 2 years?
Yeah, cash flow conversion, I already said, Yogesh, that it will be 50% of the profit after tax will be what will be the minimum free cash generated.
In terms of the inventory, so can we expect the inventory days to the revenue days to increase going ahead, or at least in terms of the ratio, it could remain stable?
See, Yogesh, when we are guiding for 50% kind of free cash conversion, there will be definitely increase somewhere. Now, we are not a capital-intensive business, and as we said that we are actually scaling down investment also in Sugar Box. So primarily, the investments which are happening are in our content businesses. And since the investment is happening in content businesses, we will see an increase in inventory. Beyond inventory, there is really nothing to call out. Data should be in line with the revenue which we report. And there is really no other there is no other working capital item which is large. So whatever investment we will see is in content, and since it is in content, we will see increase in inventory for sure.
Okay, that's helpful. Secondly, regarding just coming back to the broadcasting business in terms of the content investment, did we talk about increasing the programming hours even in our broadcasting business as well?
Yes, Yogesh, there are certain channels where we are not yet running at optimum levels, and we will be increasing original hours to reach optimum levels in some of the genres.
Okay, sure. That's all from me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sanjesh Jain from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. One question from my side on the ZEE5.
So this is the operator. I'm sorry to interrupt. May I please request you to speak a bit louder?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So the question is on the ZEE5, MAU and DAU side. So how much of the MAU and DAU which we report come from telco, and how much are really the direct customer we own? That's the first one. And the second one, related question, we said that we are expecting few deals with telco to conclude in Q1. Should we see a revenue bump up because of that in the Q1, or we have already recognized based on historical number in this quarter? These are the two questions. Thank you.
Until and until the deals are done with the telcos or the partners, we don't recognize revenues. And we did not state that the deals will be closed in Q1. We are under negotiation. As and when the deals close, they will be announced. But you will see bump up on the revenues on account of ZEE5 in Q1 for other reasons of performance, whether it be on the back of Raadhe or the fact that our subscriber base is going on its own through the other content that we are releasing. On the first part, Vijay, you want to cover? What is the first question? Sanjay, can you just repeat?
Yeah, that's about the MAU and DAU. How much of that comes from the telco partnership, and how much of them are direct customer for us?
See, large part of MAU is right now on advertising video on demand. Telco partnerships are only for premium content or for subscription service, which is not really that large. So, predominantly our MAUs are coming and DAUs are also coming from our own organic growth rather than through telcos.
Got it. And thank you, best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jaykumar Doshi from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Just a bookkeeping question. Receivables have come off by some 530 crores sequentially. So can you give us some indication what is the extent of reduction in receivables from Dish and City, and where does it stand as of FY21 end? Receivables from Dish and City.
So Rohit can answer that question for you. Rohit?
Yeah, sure. So, you're right. Our receivables have come down, and even though we have revenue growth, and that is because obviously we have good collections, and also a large part of old outstanding from Dish has also come through. So this year we collected not only the current outstanding from Dish, but more than 200 crores, including some of the collections which came post-closing. More than 200 crores of the old outstanding from Dish has also been collected. And we feel that by FY22 Dish would be in line with the other subscription debtors. On City, we have been on cash and carry basis, and we continue to collect on cash and carry basis.
Understood. So reasonable to assume that there is absolutely no receivables of City anymore, and Dish also would have come down to maybe 250 odd crores, because if I recall correctly, it was 450-500 crores at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's right. Like I said, we have collected overdues of more than 200 crores, and the other overdues we will collect it, in the current FY22.
That's great. Thank you so much, and good luck for FY22.
To clarify, Jay, City receivables are still there, but we are running on cash and carry since October, so that doesn't mean the old outstandings are over yet. So just to clarify that to you.
Got it. Understood. Thank you so much, Puneet.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Arun Prashant from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My first question is that on the advertisement revenue, for FY21 we have seen the reduction. of 20%, largely on account of the lockdown and pandemic. But we have also should have got some kind of an advantage by including the channels in the FTA or free dish. So if not for this, what would be this drop? Can you give some indicative ballpark range?
No, sorry, can you repeat that question, Arun? I didn't understand.
So in FY21 we included the FTAs back in the free dish, so that should have resulted in some kind of an advertisement revenue prop up, right? So this number of minus 20% decline on FY21 is after this inclusion, this FTA revenue inclusion, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, Arun. So that is right. But I mean, basically, there were two other FTA channels which we had, which was Ganga and Magic, and which actually did extremely well when there was no other FTA channels. This is Kids channel and this is another is Bhojpuri channel. So viewership spiked significantly. Also, our music viewership has spiked during the time we did not have large broadcasters broadcasting FTA channel. So definitely because of FTA strategy, Anmol Cinema has seen an increase in revenue. But on the other hand, we have seen also decline in revenue. I can give you offline what exactly is the number, but I really don't think it is going to be any materially different from 20% decline which we have seen. So it will not change the growth trajectory, degrowth trajectory for the year.
Okay. No, the reason is that the guidance of 20% over the FY20, where your FY20 base didn't have this, the largely the FTA revenues are not there, but now in 21 you will be there. So how much of this guidance, the 20% growth is coming because of this FTA channels are back in the system?
I mean, see, last year when we were talking in FY20, that time, I mean, more like 3 to 4% decline in overall ad revenue growth. We said that 3 to 4% there is decline in ad revenue growth on account of FTA not being there. I mean, it would be in that range or probably lesser, because our channel portfolio since then has actually expanded, and so overall the impact of FTA to growth and the kind of adjustments you are making may be in low single digits.
All right, thanks. And the second question is on, is there any structurally there is a permanent reduction in the unit cost because of the unit economics or something like that? If we have to assume, say, normalcy after the pandemic, even then there's some kind of a permanent reduction in the cost will be there. If yes, can you just quantify some or give some color on that?
So there has been certain reduction. I mean, we have been actually working very hard on our fixed cost, and we have achieved certain reductions. But just understand the business. I mean, our business is where there is production shoots which are actually going on the ground, and we have to take much more precautions than we used to take. I mean, in fact, it is probably 2 years back, there was really no need to take any specific precaution for infections and all, and now there is COVID. So right now, if you go to our set, every crew member is tested on RT-PCR test almost regularly, because we have to ensure that biobubble is maintained. So there are certain increase in cost also. So at this point of time, really, I don't think that reduction in our overheads would overwhelm those costs. In fact, we might see in the short term some increase in cost on cost per hour basis, but overall it will be pretty much maintained within larger, programming cost to revenue ratio. So nothing, no really big gain, there will only be any deterioration, no gain kind of situation we are in.
Okay, that's very helpful. Just a final question from me. Globally, we see some trend from some other broadcasters where they say that people come into their digital app for catch-up purpose, but eventually they start seeing the other original content for the OTT apps. So are you beginning to see such kind of a trends with your ZEE5? Because you said that largely you are on AVOD. So how is this trend is evolving? Because once you go through the shift, probably we can build in more DAUs and MAUs conversion. So how we should look at it, this trend?
So Arun, firstly, the way India operates, which has an AVOD and an SVOD strategy, the international markets are tailor-made for each market independently. And I can tell you that apart from Asia Pac or the SAARC region and parts of Middle East, we do not run anywhere AVOD service independent of SVOD. It's only few select markets where AVOD also is available. Markets like Europe, UK, USA, where we are yet to launch ZEE5, will have only a SVOD service because we are a paid service in those countries. And once we get off the linear platforms, we will be only available on ZEE5. So we will be running an SVOD service only. Our majority of AVOD customers today are India-based. They are not largely in the international market. Almost, I would say, 90% plus are India, and the rest will be outside.
So how is the trend in India, Punit? Is people willing to go towards SVOD after spending time with your catch-up content or anything like that?
The trend is certainly positive. We are seeing people moving to SVOD service. It's slow, but it's certainly heartening to see people who come to the funnel of catch-up TV and then move to paid services. Of course, every individual has their own preference of genre of content, and as and when you populate more genres of content, you get more traction.
Thanks, Punit. That's it from me, sir. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohit Potti from Marshmallow Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for a generous dividend. I'm a shareholder and I'm happy. My only question is on ZEE5. So if I see over the last one and a half years, what I see is that we entered e-learning and e-gaming when they were trending, but we don't see any updates on that. We spent a lot of time on launching Hippie, our short video platform, but I don't think that's doing well. We are the largest creator of original digital content, but I see us reducing our pricing because I don't think, as you said, we're not getting as much traction as we want. And over the last year, I believe there has been a lot of attrition in that business as well, which seems to be continuing over the last quarter as far as I understand. So it doesn't seem like there is a clarity on value proposition to the customer. So if you could help us understand over the next 3-4 years, what will be the strategy of ZEE5? What is the value proposition you intend to offer to the customer, and what are the key metrics that you would suggest that we observe to understand if we are on the right track?
So, first and foremost, I think your observations are right, but with a slight difference. We never got into e-learning ourselves. We never got into gamification ourselves. These were pure partner-driven. And therefore, people who approached us to bundle these services in, and that we created those bundles. Certainly, a lot of our content may not have succeeded or was not for the right audience base that we have seen. But as I said in my last quarter also, we have taken a relook at our entire strategy behind ZEE5. The plan to reduce the pricing $4.99 per year was in line with what is happening in the market. And therefore, that's the one value proposition. The other value proposition is going to be focused on good quality content in form of films as well as originals across multiple languages that we're going to focus on going forward. And you will certainly see that will be what the value proposition will be. Apart from that, we also need to improve our tech platform significantly for us to be really something that we create consumer delight by.
Thank you for your response on that, Punit. I made this observation because I've been following you for quite a long time, and my observation is that in broadcasting, we have been far ahead of the competition in how we design our strategy and we target. We targeted regionals before everybody else. We exited sports and focused on movies before everyone else. And that's really paid us a lot of dividends. But in ZEE5, we seem to be more of still doing catch-up as compared to leading, and hence that observation. So could you speak a little more on the metrics that you would suggest that we look at to understand? Because the MAUs and DAUs, you're still providing only the end quarter monthly number. So I understand that the investments will be high, and so the revenue and profit numbers are not the right metrics. But if we can have more of an idea of a sticky customer base, or what is the subscription portion of the revenue number, and how is that tracking over time? So those would probably help us even further. So if you could elaborate on that a little more, that will help.
So Rohit, at this point in time, we are not giving those breakups, but give us some time. We'll work on your request and come back to you.
Thank you, Puneet.
Yeah, thank you. Also, you'll appreciate that none of our competition's data is also available in that detail. So some amount of confidentiality we also need to maintain for us not to be exposed.
No, that's fair. So as of now, what would be the best metric to follow to understand if our strategy is working out? So that's the only question I have. I mean, that's what I want to understand.
I think clearly the MAU, DAU and the revenue number, if it's on an upward trajectory, should be comfort enough for the time being.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shalin Gupta from Enam Holding. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Good evening. So just wanted to check if the company does deliver on double-digit growth in FY22, what would be the EBITDA margin that you're expecting?
So unless and until the NTO issue is not resolved, Shalin, the EBITDA margin will be about 25% plus.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jaykumar Doshi from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for the opportunity again. I don't have a question. I just want to make a request. Would it be possible for you to, going forward, disclose the movie segment performance separately so that we are able to assess, how the return ratios are in, the movie production business? Maybe once in 6 months or so.
Noted, Jay. We will come back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jinesh Doshi from Prabhudas Lilladher. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. I just have one question. In the opening remarks, we mentioned that the shooting schedules can get upset if other states follow a regionalized lockdown strategy. So in that context, can you share typically for GEC inventory of how many episodes is already shot and that lies with us at any point in time?
So Jinesh, right now I'll just give you situation market by market. In Hindi and Marathi, largely because the lockdowns were actually announced in Maharashtra very early, we activated our contingency plan, and we had already shifted production, and I think that production will continue for one more month from the locations where the shoots are going on. So in Hindi and Marathi at this stage, we are not really expecting any disruption in original content. There might be little, but nothing to worry about. That said, as Puneet mentioned, our new launch plans are on hold, and that we'll be able to do launches only once everything opens up, maybe a few days or probably a few weeks later. When you go to regional market, it is so happening in that in whole of South, there is kind of lockdown. So taking actors and crew to some other place is not possible at this point of time because there is really no nearby location. So right now we might have, we do have original content till say around more or less up to 25th to 30th May, depending upon the market. And till then, we will continue to telecast original episodes. And when we go to Bengali market, again, we would have around original episodes till 25th. So if lockdown extends beyond 25th, in some of the regional markets, we might have to pull back original programming for a while.
And Jinesh, that is the case with all of our competitors as well. It's not isolated to us.
Fair enough. And sir, just one follow-up on this part. I mean, has the suspension of IPL had any impact on our inventory fill rates due to any shift in ad dollars? Because till now our original programming schedule is pretty much on track during prime time. So has it impacted our fill rate by any chance?
It did improve yield. Fill rates, no, because we were, even despite IPL, our fill rates were pretty decent. But it certainly had an impact, positive impact on our yields. But it was marginal given that the lockdowns were also peaking at the same time.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Zee Entertainment Enterprises Limited, we conclude today's conference. Thank you for joining. You may now disconnect your lines.